how is creativity connected to design? Do you have to be a real artist to be a designer or to be creative? Those are the questions we're going to talk about because I learned some interesting things on a recent trip to Finland that I think will be fascinating when it comes to creativity. Hi, I'm Phil Cook. Recently I went to Finland, went to Helsinki, which was an incredible city. I spoke at a media conference and a leadership conference there, had a wonderful, wonderful time. It's an incredible place, and Finland is known for its design. Particularly the city of Helsinki is known for brilliant, brilliant design. In fact, you've seen so much design from that Nordic region of the world, whether you've gone to IKEA and seen Swedish design or whether you've seen print, graphic stuff. It's amazing just how creative the people in Helsinki really are. And they actually have a design museum right in the heart of the city. It was near our hotel, and Kathleen and I walked over to it one day to check it out. And I learned some remarkable things about design. Some things confirmed my own thinking, but what I learned, I wanted to talk about today because I think they're going to help you understand creativity and how to really ramp up your creativity in your own life. The Helsinki Design Museum, by the way, if you ever go there, I'd encourage you to check it out because it's really a remarkable place and it will stimulate your thinking. And by the way, I'm big on museums. I think one of the greatest things you can do as a creative person is visit museums regularly. I love to go. Fortunately, I live in Los Angeles and we have some amazing museums, and it gives me an opportunity, during lunch hour or during a time when I have a free afternoon, I love to go to the Norton Simon, the Huntington, the LA Library downtown or the LA Museum downtown. I just think there's so many. The Broad is a great modern art museum. There's so many museums here. And they give me a chance to see things from someone else's perspective. I think that's so incredibly important as a creative person. You need to be challenged. Your preconceptions need to be challenged. The way you look at the world needs to be challenged. And it can happen in a museum. So I'd encourage you to start making that a regular part of your creative routine. So I went to the Helsinki Design Museum, and I want to share some of the thoughts that I learned from the museum. Number one, my thought is, you don't have to be an artist to be a designer. So many of us have thought over the years that I have to be great at drawing. I have to be a good freehand artist. And believe me, that's a remarkable skill. I wish I could do it better. But it was funny that at the Design Museum in Helsinki, they showed a number of artist notebooks. And let me tell you, the drawing in them was terrible, just terrible. There was a lot of designers who did products like furniture. There was designers who did graphic design. There were designers who did other things. And it was just interesting to see just the scribbles, the poor drawings, the little sketches they did in their notebooks, which told me they had brilliant ideas. They weren't necessarily great at a freehand drawing, but they wanted to get it down for them. So here's the thing. You don't have to be a great artist. If you are, certainly it's an asset because being an artist helps you show your ideas to other people. But even if you're a graphic designer, I know some people that are brilliant graphic designers that couldn't draw their way out of a paper bag. It's amazing how bad they are when it comes to freehand drawing. So certainly it's an asset, and I'd encourage you to develop it if you possibly can and have any kind of shred of talent in that department. Really help make it, work to make it better. But don't stay away from being a creative, being a designer, being any kind of a filmmaker, a video producer. Don't stay away from those areas because you can't design. I'll tell you, my crew will tell you just how bad my storyboards have been over the years. When I've produced or directed programs or movies, you'd be amazed at just how bad my little stick men are. But they help give the crew an idea of what I'm looking for. So understand, you don't have to be a great freehand artist to be a designer. Take that step, jump out there and do it. The other thing I learned, number two, is that design is collaborative. They had an interesting exhibit by a company called Song & Olin. They're a design studio there in Helsinki, really creative guys. And what the design studio does mostly is create artifacts, little kind of trinkets, toys, a lot of small things, but the interesting thing about what they've done is they've gone around the world to find what they call masters, who are artisans who've created these really interesting objects and things, and they've worked with them to tweak them and make them so they would work in their catalog. It's really an interesting online site. It's something you should go check out. I just think that it taught me, it really reminded me of just how collaborative creativity is. It's not about some artist or some writer, some filmmaker going off and just doing something on his or her own. It's really important to remember that very often design, creativity is collaborative. You need a team around you. Now, brainstorming is another topic. We can talk about that in another way, and there's times when your team is brilliant at brainstorming, but I tend to think that there's a time to work together and then there's a time to be alone. And I think this exhibit of Song and Olin, they did a really interesting exhibit of how they work together with artisans and craftsmen all over the world to create their work. So understand, it's collaborative. Don't think you can just go out and create your new book or website or film or whatever without being able to work with a team, which is one reason I think it's important to be a good leader of teams. You know, I have an episode. I have an episode on leading creative teams. I'd encourage you to check it out because being a creative leader is incredibly important when it comes to leading your team to accomplish things. The third thing I learned at the museum is creativity is a process, not a moment. So many of us think that creativity is about that aha moment of inspiration, but the truth is, it's really a process. They had a great display of Nokia. You know, you may remember Nokia was the leading cell phone producer in the world for years and years and years, and they were based right there in Finland. And they had a display about all the iterations, all the versions of the Nokia phones before it ever got to market. I mean, one version had like 14 different models that went from just a wood block to carved in different ways to putty to all kind of things that helped shape the phone and turn it into what it actually became. And it really showed me just how much of a process creativity is. It's not that aha moment. And certainly if you get aha moments, that's great. But what I've discovered is I occasionally would get aha moments about a blog post or maybe a book even, but I've still got to go through that slog of creating the book or creating the blog post or creating the video or the film. So understand don't think that because you have a great idea, it's all over. I have people call me up all the time. I just had one this morning. Someone called me up and said, Phil, I have a brilliant idea. I need to talk to you about it. You know what? That's just the start. That's just the start. Don't come to me with your brilliant idea. Think it through. Develop a strategy. How am I going to make this work? It's the same way when you pitch an idea to a movie studio or to a publisher or to a design firm or an agency. Or a funder for that matter. When you're pitching an idea, it's not just about the idea. They want to know, do you have a plan for making that idea happen? So creativity is a process. Always think about that. The fourth thing I learned at the Helsinki Design Museum is that creativity is really about problem solving. You know, it's one of the things I loved about the Design Museum that I have to say I didn't expect is they had exhibits of farm equipment that someone had created that, guess what, solved a problem. One of the most fascinating things, and it sounds so simple, was a wash basin in a sanatorium. In a tuberculosis sanatorium, they had a wash basin that had been redesigned to make it more hygienic. And it really stop the infection rate from growing at that sanatorium. Just the redesign of a wash basin back in the 1800s. I just think that when I looked at these things, and there were bicycles, and there was furniture, and there were clothing, there was all kind of stuff, and it reminded me that creativity is really about problem solving. What's a problem in your life that you need to solve? Don't think you're not creative when you're out there solving problems around you in your family, in your work, and in your church, or in your business, whatever. I'll tell you, understand, that was a revelation for me. I actually learned this years ago that when you start looking at creativity as solving problems, it will completely change the way you look at creativity. Really reminds you again, it's not that whoosh, that incredible aha moment. It's a long process of thinking and thought and execution. It's about solving problems. And I love that advertising legend George Lois, who said that creativity can solve almost any problem in the world. And I really believe it when I look around and I see, straws that purify drinking water. That was a problem solved through creativity. When I see, a nonprofit that you buy a pair of their eyeglasses and they give a free set to someone else, or you buy their shoes and they give a free set to someone needy in the third world country, that solved a problem, and it's incredibly creative. So understand, it's not just about doing a new logo. It's not just about creating a graphic design or something like that, or even a movie. It's about solving problems. So what are the problems around you that you could solve today simply by embracing the idea that creativity is all about solving problems? And the fifth thing I learned at the Helsinki Design Museum is that design is a way of life. You've heard the quote from Steve Jobs that design is not just how it looks and feels, design is how it works. Design is a way of life. I'll tell you, when you really embrace that and you start living every aspect of your life, thinking in terms of creativity, in terms of design, it will really change everything you do. I've talked on an episode before about how your perception precedes you. How you walk into a room shares a message with people. Your business card, the car you drive, the clothes you wear, your attitude. Let me tell you something. In design thinking, we know that all those things matter and all those things communicate a message. So start thinking about living the design life. Start looking at everything you do as, how can I solve this from a creative point of view? How can I look at this from a design point of view? Because how it looks, how it feels, how it works, that matters to people. That matters to the audience you're trying to reach. Very important concept. And then the last thing, number 6, that I learned at the Helsinki Design Museum is that for creativity to flourish, it needs to be valued. I'll tell you, there's no question that one of the reasons I think Helsinki is such an explosive, creative place is that people value creativity. And, I was thinking as I walked through the museum, in the U.S., for sure, creativity or especially design is looked at as 90%, can you make the logo bigger? And 10%, can you actually design something? We don't really value design. Designers are not the first people we think about hiring when we launch a new venture or a new idea. We need to change the way we think in those terms. Design, I'll tell you something, it needs to be valued. Your creative team, what have you done today to tell them how much you appreciate the work that they do? What have you done today to let your creative team or the creative people around you know that they're special, that they're valued, they're talented, and you appreciate what they do? It's not just a cheesy, corny kind of thing. It's really developing in them this spirit that, hey, creativity matters. Creativity is important. Creativity is the key to reaching the world with our message. So when we get to a place where we really value creativity, let your creative people run. If you're the leader of an organization, let me tell you something, give them some space. Give them some space. I always believe that we should give people enough rope to hang themselves. Give them some space and let them run. I think it'll really, really help you and help your organization. There's one quote from Steve Jobs that I thought of when I was walking through the museum at that point that said, after all the statistics and calculations are formulated, the one element that breathes life into marketing is good design. We get so hung up today on analytics. We get so hung up today on marketing statistics. And don't get me wrong, those things are important. But I'll tell you, good design breathes life into a project like you've never experienced before. So whether you're writing a book, I'm really hardcore. When I write the book, I'm just as hardcore on the cover, the page design, as I am on actually the content of the book. It's so important because that's what gets people to actually pull it off a shelf or order it or take a look. The cover matters. So you start seeing design in every area of life and you start really respecting it and valuing it. I think that's an incredibly important place to be. So the Helsinki Design Museum, it's a remarkable place. Never forget, start living a life of museums. Go check them out in your area. And I'll tell you, one great thing about America, no matter what small town you live in, there's a museum there. And I would encourage you to go. And every time you get to go visit a big city, Chicago, New York, LA, Denver, places like that, there's some amazing museums in each of those cities and many more that you should go visit because they will really challenge your thinking. And certainly when you're in Helsinki, and I had a great time there, go visit the Helsinki Design Museum. It's not large, but they've done a brilliant job of putting together exhibits that really make you rethink design, creativity, how to share your message with the world. I think it's so important. And speaking of sharing your message with the world, my book, The Way Back, How Christians Blew Our Credibility and How We Get It Back, that's a big part of this book. I think we've blown it as far as being Christians and how we've engaged today's culture and how we've shared our message. You know what? Nobody changes because you get mad at them. Nobody changes because you get critical with them. And that's pretty much, those kind of anger strategies are what's driven the church for the last 20, 30, 40 years. And in this book, Jonathan Bach and I really explore what went wrong and how to get back on track. I tell you, the Bible is the greatest story ever told. We just don't do a very good job of telling that story. And this book explains why, and will give you some great ideas for how to right the ship and engage today's culture much more effectively. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it at barnesandnoble.com. You can order it from your local bookstore. Whatever you need, you can get it, and I'd encourage you to check it out. And remember, come see me at philcook.com, COOKE. I'd love for you to check out our website, our blog. Our cookmediagroup.com is our website for our company, Cook Media Group. Group. That's a company where we consult, we produce, we create. I'll tell you, creativity drives our team, trying to help our clients tell their story in this incredibly distracted world. Come visit us. Share this episode with your friends who are struggling with creativity, who are thinking about becoming a designer or struggling with that design thing in some way. Share it with them. It may encourage them and change the course of their career. Keep up, subscribe, because we're going to be coming out with new episodes, and it's very exciting stuff.